In terms of what do you want to find out in an interview? Well, I would think background, competencies, motivational fit, and observations. So when we think about a background, we want to know what's your work history. What role did you play? What did you like about what you did? What didn't you like? Why did you leave that opportunity? These are things we want to find out. What about your educational credentials? Where did you go to school? What kind of degrees do you have? How about certifications and licensing? What do you have? What are you working on? What do you want to pursue going forward? What about gaps? You know, in today's environment with a lot of people being downsized, there are going to be gaps in a person's experience. And that's okay, because a lot of times, especially in this economy, somebody that may have been separated from a company due to a downsizing, it may take them a little while to find new employment. And as long as they can account for these gaps and it satisfies what you're looking for or your criteria, that's fine. But we need to make sure we explore those gaps. In terms of competencies, we want to talk about the specific experience that we're looking for and how can they demonstrate that they have those competencies based on, you know, what they've done. So this gets back to that behavioral interview, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But, you know, tell me about a time when you dealt with a difficult customer. What was the situation? What action did you take? What was the outcome? It's okay to ask those type of questions, because only by doing that can somebody demonstrate that a competency that we're requiring or desiring is something that this person has. Again, when we talk about motivational fit, we're talking about some of the things that we mentioned in the last slide is, what are you looking for in a company? Do you like to work on a team or by yourself? You might ask somebody to describe their ideal role, their ideal company. And again, you might ask them what was the best job they ever had, what was the worst job, how do they like to be supervised, what was their best supervisor, what was their worst supervisor. And we're not looking for names, but we're just looking for attributes because we want to see how that matches with what we have. In terms of observations, how do they respond to the questions? Now, a lot of applicants are nervous, and that's to be understood, but can they kind of get past that? You know, and part of our responsibility as an interviewer may be to settle them down a little bit. You know, ask them when they first come in about the weather, or ask them about their ride over or something, just to get that rapport going. But once they do that, you know, how do they respond? Do they give complete answers? Do they leave you with more questions than settled answers based on what you're looking for? What about their mannerisms? You know, do they seem anxious? Do they not seem focused? What about their eye contact? You know, hopefully they have left their cell phones in the car or definitely turned them off, that thing's not going off. What's their demeanor? Are they calm? Are they professional? Are they excitable? Again, you want to take in this whole presentation that they're making, because that could give you a clue into how they're going to be as an employee, and does it match with something you're looking for. So we've mentioned this whole concept of behavioral interviewing. Let's move next to talk about that a little bit. Behavioral interviewing, and this is where that concept of a past behavior could predict the future behavior. So again, we want to set up and ask questions in a behavioral interviewing model. So we talk about the STAR process. What was the situation or task? What was the action you took? And what were the results that you achieved? So to do that, we will often have a question that starts with, tell me about a time. And so we're looking for them to say, well, here was the situation, here was the action I took, and here are the results that I've generated. And that's going to help you to determine, well, if they handled it that way previously, probably going to be the way they're going to handle it going forward. So we want to ask about that. So let's take a look at some examples of what that looks like. Here's an example. I ask a question, tell me about a time when you helped a coworker. And the response is, well, one day I noticed a big stack of backlog work on a coworker's desk. I completed my work quickly, and then I went to to ask him if I could help him with his workload. He was grateful, and by working together, we were able to take care of the backlog by the end of the day. So the situation was, or the task was, that the person noticed a backlog. The action was they asked if they could help the coworker after he completed his work, and they worked together, and the result was they completed the backlog by the end of the day. The next example is, tell me about a time, or tell me about how you saved $100,000 in regard to reducing the raw material inventory. The reply was, well, part of my job is to maintain the raw materials inventory database. I talked with our raw materials suppliers, and we started ordering fewer materials more often. This plan reduced our need for storage and the cost of more frequent deliveries, and the cost of frequent deliveries was much less than the previous cost of the storage space. Our accountants figured that my idea saved about $100,000 a year. We had to come up with a new plan when we lost the lease on our largest storage facility. So the situation or task was that they lost the lease on the largest storage facility. The action was that they started ordering fewer materials more often. They reduced the need for storage, and therefore they reduced delivery costs. The result was they saved $100,000 a year and reduced storage space and associated costs by reducing the inventory. So again, this is a more complete, here was the situation and task, here was the action, here was the result. Now, sometimes in that scenario, you may get part of the answer, and you just need to ask for the rest. Well, I understand that was the result, but how did you get there? It's okay to ask, what was the process? How did you tee it up? What did you do to get those results? Because you want to understand not so much as how did you get those results, but what was the thought process and what did you do in order to generate those returns? That is valuable information to know going forward. When we think of, sometimes when we ask these type of questions, we get some vague statements. And I just wanted to give you an example of some vague statements. Because at first blush, we may think, well, these are good answers. But when we think about them again, and we think about them in line of the situation, task, action, and results, we may kind of come back and say, you know, that wasn't a clear answer. It wasn't a complete answer. So I just wanted to give you some of these examples because I've heard these answers to questions that I've asked in the past, and if upon further reflection, I would have asked for more information. So some vague statements. I always take the time to find out what the customer wants, and I've made a lot of customers happy that way. Well, what did you do? What was the result? How do you know that the customers were happy? The next one, I was responsible for getting proposals through the system and out to the client. Well, what was the value of that? What was the time frame? What was the problem in getting the proposals out? Why did you do that? What was the value? What was the outcome? We don't know. The next one, when it looked like we wouldn't make our deadline, we all pitched in and got it done. Well, what did you do? When did you notice that you wouldn't make the deadline? What were the results of everybody pitching in? Did you get to the deadline or did you not? Again, more complete information than what is here in these statements. The last one, and this was taken directly from an interview, so it's not the best grammar, but it is accurate in terms of what was stated. I usually had no problems with doctors. Some of the staff did, but I generally got along well with them. Well, that's good to know, but what type of interaction did you have with the doctors? Why did you have it? What were you trying to do? And why didn't some of the other people get along well with the doctors? So again, when you, as an interviewer, if you're attuned, as you should be, to what your interviewee is saying, when they answer the questions that you're asking with some of these vague statements, you want to make sure that you qualify. You dig a little deeper and ask some questions so that you can get a better situation, action, and results type answer.